Welcome back to Mentor Nation, the podcast for entrepreneurs looking for real mentorship, real strategies, and real stories so that you can go out and build your dreams. I'm your host, John Abbas, and it's time for another episode, so buckle your seatbelt and let's go. What is up, Mentor Nation family? It's your host, John Abbas, back for another action-packed episode full of wisdom, insights, and really cool strategies. I can't believe we are already on episode number 6. And man, oh man, am I excited to share this episode with you. Today, I have a very special and a very busy guest by the name of Mr. Phillip Stutts. Now, Phillip came from the toughest and most cutthroat type of marketing on the planet, and that's political marketing. And not only did he excel there, but Phillip rose to become the top dog, helping over 1,200 people get elected to political office, including 3 presidents. And yes, you heard that right. Phillip was the one that helped 3 presidents get elected into office. When someone wants to win and they have tens of millions of dollars and they need the best in the world to pull it off, Phillip is the one that they call. And he has a network that rivals the royal family. And a few years ago, he decided to do something really incredible. He made the decision to pivot from only helping politicians win to helping businesses win as well, when he discovered that the principles to winning in politics were the exact same in business. He branched his company, Go Big Media, off into another company called Win Big Media, which helps businesses dominate through a formula he created that works so well that it has never failed. This formula turned his company into a multi-million-dollar media empire in record time, and he is also the best-selling author of the book Fire Them Now, which I really highly recommend, by the way, for entrepreneurs. Now, in today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into that formula, and we're going to talk about how you can use it in any area of your life to just absolutely crush it, whether it's your health, your business, or even if you want to run for political office yourself. You can use this formula to 10x your performance and your results. We are also going to spend just a moment talking about an incurable disease that he suffers from and how he's been able to build an empire, help thousands of people, raise a family, all while battling a debilitating health issue at the exact same time. So if you're busy spinning a lot of plates and you're trying to figure out how to make it all happen, this is a really great episode for you to tune into. I am so glad you're here, and let's get the show started. All right, Phillip, thank you so much for being on Mentor Nation. Glad to have you.
Morning. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so before we get started, I just want to ask a really quick question because, doing the research on you and just being on your website, you have pics and interviews with literally some of the most incredible people and accomplished people of our generation. And I just wanted to ask, was there someone that you worked with or talked to that was particularly interesting? Or could you tell us a really cool story about somebody you've met that was on your website?
I can do 2. James Altucher and I was on his podcast, and we've become friends, and we are now he's helped me on some investment advice because he's so damn smart. I've helped him on some things that deal with politics, but just yesterday I gave a speech in Napa Valley last week, and I have a joke that I wrote and I delivered for the first time in the speech. It didn't really go over that well. And so Altucher, if your audience at some point, go look him up. Super interesting. But now he's a stand-up comedian. Like, he's this financial guy. Now he's a stand-up comedian. And so he and I worked through the joke yesterday. So we're working through that. And then the other story is Dr. Drew. Everybody knows who Dr. Drew Pinsky is, right? From the Love Line and Celebrity Rehab and a teen mom and all that stuff. I went on his show, and he and I also became friends. But I've been working with him for the last 3 months to help the homeless situation in Los Angeles. And my value is that I know people that work in the White House. And so he's trying to solve this horrific homelessness situation in LA. And I
Wow.
just said, man, he gave me value by putting me on a show. I called him and said, look, I don't want anything. Why don't I try to see if I can get the White House to move on this? Next week, he and I are going to go to a meeting in the White House together and meet with them on trying to resolve the homeless situation. So those are two. Never been asked that question, by the way. That's really cool. But
Yeah,
those are two from podcast hosts that took a life of their own afterwards.
that's really, really incredible. And so I'm super excited to share some really valuable insights with the audience today. And I wanted to start just talking for a couple of minutes about a health issue that you've been battling. And the reason why is just because as I've been doing the research, I feel like that this issue is not only an incredible part of your story, but I feel like a lot of the decisions, it's impacted a lot of the decisions that you've made with your business. And I just wondered if you could share a little bit about that. I think it's pronounced achalasia.
Yeah, that's right. No, listen, I have an incurable esophageal disease. Basically, the muscles and the nerves in my esophagus that push food from when you swallow to into your stomach don't work, and they'll never work the rest of my life. They're dead. I mean, literally, they're dead. And it affects about 1 out of 100,000 people. Most of those people are in their 70s and 80s. I was diagnosed in my 30s. I've had 15 minor procedures on my esophagus. I've had 3 major surgeries on it. The last surgery I had, they basically cut 25% of my stomach, and they then wrapped it around my esophagus, stapled it together so that food would literally fall into my stomach if I drank water. And it stabilized my esophagus for the first time in years. But that wrap, basically the stapling and the wrap,
Right.
will come undone one day. And when it does, I'm out of options. The doctors have said that at that point, I've probably had too many surgeries. I'm 45 right now. It will result in me probably having my esophagus removed, an esophagectomy, and then being put on a feeding tube for the rest of my life. And so a couple of years ago, faced with that, much longer story, but faced with that, I basically said, I always say this, John, that most people don't make change until the pain is too high, is too
That's right.
great, right? And that was a moment where I'd for years done nothing about my disease. I listened to all my doctors. I took medications they told me to take, but they had long-term dementia effect, but they worked in the short run. And I just said, well, okay, my doctors are saying it. And this was the Mayo Clinic. It's not like I was at my local yokel doctor.
Wow.
And at this moment where I realized the consequences of doing nothing and just sitting idling by, I just said, I don't accept that. And the doctor at the Mayo Clinic literally kind of giggled at me when I said, I don't accept his prognosis of the feeding tube. And he laughed, kind of giggled, not in a condescending way, but just like, you don't understand, and patted me on the back and said, see you in 6 months, take your medicine. So I just said, I drove home from the Mayo Clinic that day and just said, I've got to figure out a change. I got to do something. And so 2 things happened. One, I had to get my diet in order so I could stay as healthy as possible so my esophagus could stay intact as long as possible. And I got on a crazy diet called the Plant Paradox Diet, it's a book written by Stephen Gundry. He's now a 4-time New York Times bestseller.
He's incredible.
I was just on his show last week, and I got on the diet, and within a month, I got off all of my medications. I have an incurable disease. I take no prescription medication for it. And then the second part was I decided I'd find a cure to the disease. And I wrote an article in Inc. magazine about 2.5 years ago proclaiming that I would find a cure to this disease in 5 years. A disease that's rare, has no research dollars behind it, and even the people at the Mayo Clinic told me is not possible, which shows you sort of the ignorance of an entrepreneur is
Right.
beautiful. And so I wrote the article, it got picked up, some doctors got in touch with me. One particular doctor at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore was uber intrigued. He'd worked on this disease. We decided to start talking. We put a team around me. For 2.5 years, we've been working together. We recently got the FDA and Johns Hopkins itself to approve a one-man first ever clinical trial there. This will happen next week, where they will extract stem cells out of my thigh muscle. They will grow them for 6 months in a stem cell lab, and then they will inject them into my esophagus to try to regenerate the muscles and the nerves. And we have no idea if it'll work. We have no idea if it won't work. It's never been done on animals or people. It could go terribly wrong or bad, or it could go great. We just don't know. But the genesis is that the people at the Mayo Clinic 2.5 years or 3 years ago right now laughed at me and told me, that, I needed to take my medication and just continue eating the same foods I'd always eaten that had caused the disease. And I just took, as an entrepreneur, I just said, I'm going to treat my health like I treat my businesses. You overcame a lot, and we'll see what happens. We're not there yet. But if it doesn't work, I'll go to a plan B. But right now I got all my chips on plan A, so we'll see what happens.
I feel like if it does work, you'll have another book in the making for sure.
I got a lot of books in the making. Yes, that could be one of them for sure.
That's incredible that you say that, because I really feel like there's such a parallel between doctors and digital marketing agencies. Like, I feel like so many people just blindly trust them and don't ask questions and they just do what they tell them to do. And that's just so crazy, because in your book, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, it's kind of like you took the same philosophy that you did with your doctors. You're like, no, I think I'm going to do it this way. And it ended up working out.
I would tell you, and with my work with Dr. Gundry, he had a formula that he instituted on me to get off medication. That is the same formula that I have instituted in every political marketing campaign I have ever done in the history of my political marketing career. And it dawned on me that 99% of business marketers do not use this formula. So if you're a business owner and you use this formula, and I'm happy to walk through it with you because I'm teasing it right now, apparently. If you use the formula, you are competing in a space that no business is competing in right now. And what we have found is by utilizing this formula with, we've got dozens of clients now, that those clients are every single one that has utilized the formula has grown their bottom line. Every single business is growing by utilizing the formula. I'll tell you how it works in medicine. I'll tell you how it works in politics, and then we'll go into business. Does that work?
Absolutely. Let's do it. So let's get into the formula.
So like with Dr. Gundry, he said, well, first of all, the thing we need to do is we've got to get data. We got to know what what's going on inside your body. So we did a series of blood tests on me, on my health. Mm-hmm. That series of blood tests, we did 125 blood tests on me. What we found was a lot of things that had bad markers and indicators on, a lot that where I was neutral, and a lot where I was doing pretty well. But ultimately, we had to figure out the neutral and the bad, and we had to fix it. Right. But the data after 125 tests told us, oh, this is what your body supports, doesn't support. This is where you need supplements. This is what you need to stop. This is what you need to continue. The data devised a game plan, which is step 2. Step 1 was to find the data. Step 2 was to put the game plan together. So we did. So what we did was we put it all together. And the game plan was I'd get on a series of supplements. I take 40-something supplements a day now. I'm on this plant paradox diet, which has eliminated 1,000 things from what I typically ate, even things I thought were healthy. That was part of the game plan. The third step was my brand, right? So he said, I need you to work out. I need you to get in better shape. I need you to do yoga. I need you to do meditation. I need you to do all these things that improve how you feel, your brand, right? So I did that. And then so what we did was we got on all these supplements. And then the fourth step was we tested. So after about 6 months, we went back and did all that blood work again. And we found out what supplements had improved my markers, what supplements did nothing. And then all of a sudden now we had all this data. And he said, now that we know what your data says, and now what we've tested everything, we again, a second time, we now know what works and what doesn't. And we're going all in. We're pushing our chips into everything that we know works. Well, that was 2 years ago. And I can say right now that out of 125 blood tests, I'm either in the positive zone or the neutral zone for every indicator and marker. I don't have one thing in a negative zone. Everything has moved in the right direction. Every single health test I have is moving in the right direction or is in the right zone right now. Wow. And that was not where I was 2 years ago. Now that's medicine. That's how Gundry approached it. And when I saw that, I went, my God, this is how we do it in political marketing. In political marketing, the first thing a candidate tells me when he wants to run for office is, hey, I say, the first thing I tell them is, what do you believe in? And that candidate, he or she will tell me, 10 things like, oh, I believe in cutting taxes and I believe in helping the environment and I can, all that stuff. And then I go out and I do a poll in the district or the state, and I find out what the voters think. And then I find 2 things where there's total alignment between what the candidate believes and what the voters want. They want more than anything else. And then I devise step 2, once we get the data, I devise a political marketing plan. Now that we know where there's alignment, we're going to devise a complete strategy around that. 3 is the brand. The politician has to build a website. They have to play the part. They have to look nice. That's their brand, right? We have to get like the messaging on the website, the videos on the website it's not about what the politician wants to talk about. It's about where he or she has alignment with the voter. That's all. That's our messaging.
Right.
Then, without a lot of dollars, because we're always early in campaigns without a lot of money, most people aren't self-funders, we test those 2 or 3 concepts 100 different ways. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I'll give you a great example. In New Hampshire in 2018, we were helping the governor. The governor was running for re-election, and we ran the polling and the data said taxes were a big issue. Middle-class tax cuts were a big issue. But when we did the testing, we found out that women didn't want to be told about middle-class tax cuts. They wanted to know how the tax cuts affected families, affected children. Men just said, give me the damn money, give me the damn tax cuts. So our ads and our testing was focused on how do we be more compassionate on this issue with women, but with men, we could just say the economy is approved, you get your tax cuts. And the governor won re-election by 8 points against a woman Democrat. And now the woman, when I say that's important, is this was a wave election where Democrats, especially women Democrats, won across the board all over the country. It was, hands down. Republicans got crushed. This governor did not, even though he was very vulnerable, Governor Sununu. How did that happen? We read the data. We tested the data. We had a plan. The brand was on point. Once the test came back, we figured out what really worked. And then the last step 5, is we went all in on what we knew the test said would work. And it did. Finally, in business marketing, it's the same thing. And nobody's doing this. The first thing I do is I go in and understand the customer data. I so believe in this formula that I went out and spent 6 figures on a licensing agreement with the largest data collection company in America. And because of that, I now can take a customer base or build a lookalike audience with them of our customer base. And I can tell you everything about them. I can tell you what they think, what they feel. Because what happens is we follow what they do online, not what they say, what they do. I can tell you what platforms they're on, social media platforms, and I can tell you in what chronological order they're on those platforms. I can tell you what newspapers they read. I can tell you where the ad dollars should be tested and spent. I can tell you how the messaging should be run because it's about what they care about, not about how you want to talk about your product. But we find out all that data, and then we design a marketing plan, a strategy around the data, not around me sitting around a table going, well, hey, John, I brainstormed last night with a bunch of dudes at a bar and I got some cool ideas for you. That's how a lot of marketing companies do it. That's not how we do it. We say, this is what the data says. It's not my opinion, it's the data. And all I've ever done is build strategies off data. I've done 3,000 marketing campaigns this way. So I know how to read data and I know how to build the strategy around it. Then we get the brand on point. Listen, if you read my book, I kind of trash people that go out and talk about branding all the time. But I will tell you, your brand is your resume. If your brand is not good, just like a resume, if someone comes to work for you, you look at their resume, you throw their resume in the trash can. Or you look at the resume and you take some notes on it and you go, oh, that's interesting. I want to ask that question. That's your website. That's your content. That's your messaging. It's the same thing. People can either dismiss you fast or they can go, oh, that guy gets me. I need to know more. That's all your brand's going to get you. And then we go to the 4th step, which is now that we know what your customer wants, we test a ton of different messages on the platforms the data tells us to go. Eventually, we will find 2 or 3 of the issues that are crushing. Right now, we work for a national pest control company. They had been in business for 40 years, and on the backs of the Great Recession, they built a whole marketing concept around discounts. I talked about this on the Mike Dillard show, but what I didn't have was the full completion of our marketing campaign for them back then. And so what happened was they followed the process. We did the data for them. We produced a plan. It all started engaging more and more at the beginning of 2019. And then we went out and tested all the data. And the data said that their customer base wanted to make sure their products were safe. They had always marketed to discounts. And their customers, when the data told us that customers thought discounts were cheap. So they were marketing to something that literally turned off the customer. And it made sense because they had lost millions over the last few years. So they wanted safe products. They wanted green products. They wanted someone that was on time. They wanted all these things. So we built an entire marketing campaign around this. We tested everything out. We did ad shoots for them, right? We ran all these things. And then we officially launched in the spring. Well, this past May, we just did a case study on this. This past May, they had the most successful month in the history of their company ever.
Wow.
40 plus years. National they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. The most successful month in the history of their company. Why? Because we went through the process with them, and they didn't say, "Give me the get rich quick pill." They said, "Let's do this the proper way. Let's grow it the right way. Let's figure out what works. We figure out what the data says, and we don't want to put big dollars into anything until we know what works." So my job is to eliminate the risk of the business owner. And so we did all these tests. We figured out what worked. We launched the campaign, and the result was the best month in the history of their company. That is what's happening across the board for all of our clients. I could give you so many different examples right now, but that's what we're focused on. And so that's how it works in medicine, political campaigns, and business marketing.
That's really incredible, because I know a lot of this is covered in your book, Fire Them Now, which, just to stop right here, everybody needs to pick that book up. I had actually ordered it, and it did not arrive in time. So I got the Kindle version yesterday, and I read half of it and fell asleep on the couch. And
oh no, I made you fall asleep?
Oh, no. It was just 2 a.m. is why I fell asleep. The book, I couldn't put it down. I was going to read for like an hour, but you have some incredible concepts in there. And I think it's so important, especially for the audience listening, because most of the audience here, they're small business owners or medium-sized business owners. And a lot of them have stories just like me. I own a large daycare center outside of Nashville. And, when I first purchased it, I went to a digital marketing agency, and, they were going to charge me about $3,500 a month to put together this Facebook ad campaign. And, it sounded great. And for just some reason, something didn't feel right. And I ended up placing $150 a month on Google Ads, and it literally exploded our daycare. And it's just, I almost blindly followed them. And so I wanted to have you share a few insights, about some of the lies and some of the misconceptions about marketing that people are facing, in small to medium-sized businesses, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. No, I mean, look, the one that it's the number one, and it's not what you would think it is, because you're talking, about tactics right now, right? This one is not a tactic. It's about how to work with an agency, and it is the long-term contract. I interviewed over 100 CEOs for the book, from Fortune 500 CEOs to small businesses. And I got the same thing every time. Maybe as a business owner, John, this you read the book, so you know what I'm about to say, but you know that it may make sense. They go, look, in order to work with us, you've got to sign a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month contract. Mm-hmm. It's kind of industry standard for marketing companies to do this. And I just, when I heard it for the first time, I went, no, wait, what? They make you sign, what? I was like, because in political marketing, if we sign with a candidate as a political marketer, right, every contract I've ever had since 1996 is month to month. Wow. I can be fired at any moment. And the reason that's important is because if my ass is on the line every day, you better be damn sure, whether you're a candidate or a business owner, that I'm going to be working and fighting for you every day. If my contract is for 12 months, do I really need to put that much energy into you? That's right. Do I have other clients that are paying me more? All these things. And so, it's crazy as it sounds, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you put yourself as a business owner in the position to win before the marketing team decides to win. Because here's what happens. And I'm telling you, 100 out of 100 CEOs said this. They all said the same thing. They hired a marketing company. They signed a long-term contract. Something didn't work. They were spending money. They got no ROI, but they couldn't do anything about it because they were locked into a long-term contract. They couldn't make a move. They couldn't get the people to redo the contract. They couldn't get out of the contract. They were forced to continue to pay these people whether they made money or not, and many of them did not. Every CEO that I talked to had fired a marketing agency sometime in the process of working with them. Everyone had fired a marketing agency. And I went, well, the first thing is you got to change the game. You got to change the rules of the game. You must insist on a month-to-month contract with any marketing agency. And if that marketing agency says that's not how we do it here, then you know that they're looking out for their bottom line before they're looking out for you to win. And the reason that's important is this. So obviously, I do month-to-month contracts. You can't work with me unless you do a month-to-month contract. Here's why. How long will you keep me as your marketer if I am literally motivated every day by, with the incentive of I could be fired? Like, it's not my incentive now, but it is the incentive of I got to perform. I got to innovate. I got to come up with new ideas, new approaches. These people need to be able to get in touch with me 24/7. Like, my entire mindset is completely different than any other marketing agency because I must put their needs first. And let me tell you this, the businesses that grow with us, do you think they're ever going to get rid of us?
Absolutely not.
No. So I win ultimately, but I only win if the company, the business, the entity grows their bottom line. So I'm obsessed with innovation and growing the bottom line, which is why I go back to this formula, because with this formula, we have it, I call it the undefeated marketing system for us. That's what I call it. And it's undefeated. And I'm growing every business and we're not getting fired. And that's how it works. And that wouldn't have happened had I been able to kick my feet up on my desk and say, well, we got 7 12-month contracts right now. Right. We're good to go. This business is thriving. That's just not how it works.
That's such incredible advice. And so also in the book, I wanted to reference, a lot of us know that it's important today for businesses to adapt to the changing times, but I wanted to just ask, what you think, what are some of the big changes that you're seeing that's happening right now? I see in the book, you talked a lot about, artificial intelligence and bots, what are some of the other changes that you see and how can people get on the forefront of it?
It's for me, number one, it's all about targeting and it's not about platforms, not about tactics. You have to have a strategy based in data. And again, Facebook is not a social media company. They're the data company. Google is not a search engine. They're a data company. The reason that they've moved their model to becoming data companies is because that's where truth lies and money is to be made. If you're not using data, like customer data, client data, to derive all your decisions, you're going to lose very quickly. So for me, it's all that data. Second, there are so many new variables in the social media platforms that, what we have found more than anything else is just how the dynamic's changing. I've found, I'll give you one example. Do you know what geofencing is?
Yes, sir.
Great. So if your audience doesn't know, geofencing means that I can literally put an imaginary fence around a specific geographic location and run ads just on that location, right? So if you're running a big conference and you want to target the people in the building, I can run ads on the building. But here's what's now in place, geofarming, which means I can go back to an event. So you said you went to a Tony Robbins event in Chicago. How long ago was that?
It's about 2-3 years ago.
Okay, let's say it's 2 years ago because that's how far I can go back.
Okay.
I can go back and geofarm that event on that day in that building and capture everybody that had a cell phone on during that event, and I can run ads just to those people from an event you went to 2 years ago, and that's geofarming. And that is available now, and we do that for a lot of cases, both in politics because we hold rallies and we can capture everybody there. Like if a candidate ran for office 2 years ago as a congressman and they had a rally, I can literally go back to the geographic location in less than 2 years ago, if it was 2 years ago, whatever, and capture all the people that were there and start running ads for his reelection right now if I wanted to. Another one that we do is connected TV. So we all know about connected TV, Hulu, and Netflix and everything like that. Well, we now can get the data from there. So we have a multi-billion-dollar client, and a story ran on their business recently on the NBC 90 News. I was able to go back to basically any connected TV app, Hulu, Pluto, all the ones, right? And they will give us the data on everybody that watched the NBC 90 News that night. And then I can in turn take the IP addresses and start running digital ads, not Hulu ads, digital ads on their devices that counter that particular story or give a different perspective of that story.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So people are always like Facebook, LinkedIn, and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but the tools and the precision and the data that we can get now is insane. The last one I'll give you is what I call a digital mail chase. I think there is a resurgence in the effectiveness of direct mail because people are still opening their mail. It's like a 75% open rate. They may not spend a lot of time on it, but they will look at it. And I can take a mail list for a particular client. Let's say they have a 50,000 mail list of customers. We'll mail them a shiny postcard and, we'll do some kind of offer on it because we work with a lot of clothing companies. Let's just say it's for a clothing company.
Mm-hmm.
And I can take that same 50,000 list and overlay it on, and find their IP addresses. And we get it can be between 60 and 80% match. And I can run digital ads on those exact same people, nobody else, just the people that got the mail piece, on the same topic, on the same message, on the same offer. And what we have found is a 20% higher conversion rate when you do what's called a digital mail chase. And so those are three tactics that we've utilized for a lot of our clients that we've seen a lot of effectiveness right now.
That's awesome. So just in terms of marketing in general, are there any businesses that you see that are just really doing it right at the moment?
Yeah, two industries are crushing it right now, and that's fast food and alcohol. That's it. And I read that because they'll try anything. I'll give you one in fast food and one in alcohol. Burger King recently and I wrote about it, but it's also probably the best marketing campaign I've seen. I do not work for Burger King. This is a total compliment to their marketing agency. It was called the Whopper Detour. I don't know if you ever saw this, but the Whopper Detour it was like a 5-day campaign.
I have seen that.
They offered 1 cent Whoppers. So there's an instant connection with the customer base. Again, you get the data to find out how to make a better connection with your target market or your customer. They did that. Who doesn't like free food? They got free Whoppers. 2, they said in order to get the free or the 1 cent Whopper, the virtually free Whopper, you had to download their app and order it from the app. Oh,
right.
Brilliant. Now they're collecting the data of not only their own customers, but new customers. And now they'll be able to target even more effectively in the future. Then they said, in order to get that 1 cent Whopper, you had to order it on the app, but you had to do it at a McDonald's across the street from a Burger King. So one of the concepts that we do with every client is comparative advertising. I've coined the phrase called comparatizing. In politics, we call it negative advertising. Everybody hates it. The concept is similar. It's not the same in execution, right? We're not trying to offend. In politics, I can offend 49% of the market. I don't care. As long as I get 51, I win. You can't do that in corporate marketing. And so we have figured out a way to do it with all of our clients based on what the data tells us in a way that doesn't offend anybody and endears and makes a stronger connection with your customer base. Well, here, Burger King did, now they're going, quote unquote, they're doing a comparatizing ad against McDonald's. And so first, nobody is offended by this, right? Nobody, except the McDonald's executives, right? Second, you've got all these people standing in McDonald's ordering a Burger King. This is brilliant. We calculated that it ended up generating 8 figures in free advertising from all of the free media it generated. USA Today ran a massive story, and it was Burger King punks McDonald's, or it was McDonald's got punked, or something like that. They wrote the story for Burger King. And the ads are so funny because it's like their customers ordering the 1 cent Whopper from McDonald's, and the McDonald's workers are all confused. Even a better connection. So all of it came together to just show like deep connections. Yes, everybody right now has a phone in front of their face. I get that. But nobody is making deep connections with the customer base. Nobody, you and I, and no one else listening is literally clicking on a banner ad right now, unless the banner ad is very curious to them. And you have to make your content incredibly effective and connected. And we only can do that if the data tells us what these people care about. And so, we've done this, the comparitizing. We did this for a supplement health food company recently.
Mhm.
We, in our testing phase, stage 4, in the data, we found that their customer base hated soda, which makes sense, right? Like, why wouldn't they? But how would
Right.
you know not to go out and say you hate candy bars? Well, that's not what they said. They said they hated soda. So we ran all these anti-soda ads. Well, of all the tests we did, it was the number one, not even by a close margin. It was the number one performing ad. Why? Because people saw the ad and said, yeah, I don't like soda either. Who is this company? And they clicked on it. We had a 2x click-through rate
Wow.
compared to the second place ad that we ran. We ran 10 ads. The second place ad, if we're only comparing the top 2 ads, it had a 2x click-through rate compared to the second place ad, and it had a 20% higher conversion rate. It was because people are dying to make connections. They're on their phones, but they're not connecting with anything. So the data tells us how to make connections, and that's how we did it. So that's the fast food industry. The beer industry is doing comparative advertising like crazy right now. Bud Light in a lot of trouble, but I still loved the idea. They ran the anti. They don't use corn syrup. Like Miller Lite and Coors Light use corn syrup
Right.
in their beer, and they ran that ad. Like, they went to court. The judge told them they had to take down the ads and all that stuff. And all these business owners are like, "Oh my God!" Like, they got sued. Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. I said, "Do you know how much free advertising they got?" It's kind of like a politician in a scandal. Yes, you have to defend yourself, but the more you talk about it, the more it resonates in their brain, even if you're defending it. And so the fact that Miller Lite and Coors Light had to go out there and say, it's not fair, you're saying we use corn syrup in our beer, told the story all over again for
Yep.
free, which is totally worth the cost of the lawsuit. And so, what we're finding across the board is humor and comparative advertising are crushing everything when it comes to better connections with customer bases.
Are you watching this chicken sandwich war that's going on right now with Chick-fil-A and Popeyes?
I write a lot about Chick-fil-A, a lot, because I think they're an incredibly smart company on their marketing. But I got to be honest with you. I've been traveling for like 3 weeks, and I know it's out there. I know Popeyes put a sandwich out, and then it's sold. Again, it sounds pretty smart. Like, they just gave a limited number. Now people are like clamoring for it, but I don't know much more than that.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of
tell me
funny.
if you
I think Wendy's is a part of it too somehow. I'm not 100% sure, but they're going back and forth on Twitter and social media. It's just like, I think Popeyes had a post that was like, people need chicken on Sundays. And then Chick-fil-A fired back and it was like, at least we don't run out of chicken sandwiches. It was really funny.
Yeah, this is
But
what I love.
I see that a lot of that going in that direction. And so, I know, Phillip, you've been doing a ton of speaking lately, traveling all over. So, I just wanted to ask, if you were giving a keynote to a room full of 3,000 entrepreneurs, what would be the biggest takeaways that you would like them to take away from your speech? I mean, I know we've covered your formula, and man, that alone is worth $1 million. Like, I'm here taking notes right now, but I just wanted to ask that question. Like, if you were on stage, giving a speech, 3,000 entrepreneurs in the room, what would be the three big, or just 1, 2, 3 biggest takeaways you'd like them to take away from your talk?
Well, there's a slide, and it's funny because I do get this talk, so this is an easy answer for me. But I have this slide in my slide deck, and it's a city street in New York in 1900, and right next to it's the same city street in New York from 1913. And in one picture, it's all horse and buggy, and in another picture, it's all cars. That 13-year window was the most disruptive moment in human history until
Wow.
now. And right now, we are in the most disruptive moment in human history. And there are 10,000 disruptions going on in every industry, in every business. And it's not the first order consequences. I talk about autonomous cars in my book. It's the second order consequences. It's consequences of when we have safer cars, what happens to people on organ donor lists that are waiting for car accidents to happen so that they can get an appendage or they can have a transplant. And so the construction industry is a fascinating industry. We do a lot of work with construction companies, but construction industry is being completely disrupted. There are now 3D printing houses At South by Southwest last year, they 3D printed a 400 square foot house for $10,000 in 24 hours. In Japan last year, China last year, they 3D printed a 4,000 square foot house in 1 month, and it could withstand an 8.0 earthquake. In Japan, they are using robots to put drywall up in houses. My point is, what happens to the workers in those industries? What happens to construction companies that aren't using 3D printing and they're building houses the old-fashioned way? This is all coming to a head in the next 10 years. And you think I'm just talking about autonomous cars or construction? I could literally talk about any industry and tell you 20 things are going to happen. And so this is the moment for business owners, especially as I focus on marketing, to say, this is your moment to change the game and the way you do your marketing. You have to be an outlier in your marketing. You have to do things differently in your marketing. That 5-step formula that I told you about, that every business owner I'm working with is growing, that formula nobody's using. We use it in politics. In fact, it's how, when I'm going up against someone, two candidates are coming together to go, run against each other, both political marketers are using the same formula. Like, we're going head to head with those people using the same formula. A sports team. Who's your favorite football team, John?
Tennessee Titans. Okay. Unfortunately.
The Tennessee Titans and the great Derrick Henry are, every week they come on Monday and they study the game tape of their own team and of their opponents for the next week, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, they're getting all their data. They're getting the data. After they've studied all the game tape, or the coaches have and the players have, then they put together a game plan, the strategic plan. Then the NFL owners clean up the stadium. They wash the jerseys. The brand is on point, because if you walked into that stadium and it's got cups everywhere, you're never going back.
Right.
If that jersey is nasty and ripped and everything, you're like, what kind of cheap team is this? So the brand has to be reworked every week. 4th step, they go out in the testing phase. They go out and practice. They practice the plays they think will work, and they practice the plays they have to defend against. And they figure out what plays are going to be the best that give them the best chance to win. And then they rechannel that game plan, and they come out with what they know will work and what they know won't work. And then they go out and play the game, the 5th step. It's the same formula. The only difference is the other team is doing the exact same thing. They're doing the exact same formula. In political marketing, my opponent is doing the exact same formula. In business marketing, nobody is doing this formula. Nobody.
Man,
you play an infinite game in the most disruptive moment, you will win. And that's why it's important.
Wow, that's so insightful. My last question for you is, just with how successful you've been in political and business marketing, have you ever thought about running for politics, since there's a good chance you'd win?
I will never in a million years, even if you put a gun to my head and a knife to my throat, would I ever run for office.
That's a great answer. My very last, well, it's not so much a question, but I know, Phillip, the audience got so much out of today. And I know that probably every single person listening to this is going to want to know the best way to connect with you, follow you. And you also do something that I have never seen before on your website, which is a 5-minute audit for the business owners listening. Could you just, let people know where to find you, how to connect, where to get your book, and just a little bit about what that 5-minute audit is? Yeah,
well, the book's on Amazon or iTunes. It's called Fire Them Now. You can go to my personal website, which is just my name, phillipstutts.com. My company is windigmedia.com, so you can contact me through those 2 channels. The free marketing audit is this. Every time I kept talking, and when the book came, before the book came out, after the book came out, everybody's like, okay, I understand the world is being disrupted, but I don't know where I even start in this process. And then I thought, well, how can I help in that process and give value first? And so we developed a 25-point marketing audit that we'll undertake. The business owner goes out and fills it out. It's phillipstutts.com/audit. You can find it on windigmedia.com as well. And it takes 5 minutes. You fill out your publicly available digital footprint, and my team will spend 2 or 3 days going over everything that you have online, again, publicly available, and then we'll come up with a 25-point checklist and tell you what you're doing right and what you can improve. And then once you do that, we'll set up a 30-minute free phone call to go through the report and tell you what you need. And that's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Well, we've had to do so many that now it's free to do it with my team. If you want to do it with me, I think we charge like $495 and I'll do an hour with you. But it's free. If you don't want to use me, you can talk to my team, and they're the ones that have helped put it together as well.
Man, that's awesome. Phillip, I can tell you with absolute confidence that this was one of the best interviews that I have ever had, with just nugget after nugget of wisdom. And I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on the show.
Oh, man, I'm honored to be here. Keep doing great work out there, okay?
Thank you so much. Boom. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and I really hope it added value to your day. Definitely check out Phillip's website and his new book, Fire Them Now. And I want to thank you so much for listening. And I also wanted to share something really quick with you guys. In addition to the podcast, myself and 3 other co-founders are building a tech startup called Mentor. And what Mentor is it's a peer-to-peer learning platform. Think of like Airbnb, but for learning instead. And the purpose of it is to not only give people access to real mentorship and hands-on learning, but it's also to give anyone the opportunity to earn income by becoming a mentor on the platform and teaching something that you love, something that you're great at, or by letting people shadow you. We are going to be beta testing the iOS and the Android apps really soon, and I'd really love for you guys to check it out. Just visit www.getmentor.com. Now, mentor is spelled without the O, so it's www.getmentr.com. Again, it's www.getmentr.com. If you are possibly interested in an opportunity to earn on the platform, just subscribe on the website and you'll get updates as we get closer to the rollout in January of 2020. Thank you so much again, and I will see you next week with another super powerful episode. Have a great day.